Now, to summarise, in a nutshell, can you walk me through the entire process of how everything occurs from the first contact with yourself until the man is happily married and living with his new wife in his home country?
Okay, well, first of all, gentlemen will make base with me either by my website or if they've seen an advert in the press, by telephone. I will call them up, I will reply to them, and I will have a good chat with them, and I will find out their circumstances. I'll find out, first of all, if they're in employment, or if they're not working, if they're of independent means, if they're retired, if they've got a private pension or means of being a sponsor for a Thai lady. We'll first of all establish their financial credibility. Now, don't get me wrong, these ladies are not all looking for rich men, but what I'm trying to say to you is, unless the man has a certain level of income, we will not later be able to do the visa. And there are some agencies perhaps that are maybe a little economical with the truth and will sort of sugarcoat it and say, oh, that'll be all right, don't worry about that, we'll sort it out. But they're just very happy to take the money and say goodbye. They'll probably be not trading in 2 years' time. I've had about a dozen of my clients over the last, since 1997, who have started agencies against us, and none of them seems to trade for more than a couple of years at the most. And they go into this because they think it's some sort of get-rich-quick scheme. It's not. Anyway, coming back to the answer, and that is, if a gentleman has ticked the first box, basically, and his financial status is satisfactory, and it's sufficiently high, I believe, that we'll be able to successfully do a visa, that's fine. We'll go on to the next question. I need to establish with him if he is prepared, first of all, to understand he has to travel to Thailand twice to achieve this, and that he has to make 2 trips, and that it will take several months. For most clients, it takes 6 to 8 months. For United States clients, it might take 10 months or even 12 months. Usually less than that, though. But so we go through the financial status, we go through the costs. I run through the costs, what it will cost. I go through all these things before I even, if I send to a brochure, we even send them a brochure. I like to ask clients a lot of information. Now, all right, 50, 60, 70% of the guys that phone me up will not get past this first conversation because they'll soon realise, oh God, I didn't know it was this, or I'm not that serious after all, I was just wanting a bit of fun, or I'm looking for sort of something more casual. That's fine, they can go and do that. They can come back to me in a few years' time. Assuming he's financially stable, assuming he's looking for a long-time relationship, assuming he's prepared to understand that he has to travel to Thailand twice, we'll get down to the stage I'll send him more information. If he wants a brochure, I'll send him a brochure. If he's down on the internet, I'll tell him probably just to go through my website. If he can't find any ladies and about 1,000 on my website that he likes, then maybe he should be looking at something else, or maybe, I don't know. If you're a red-blooded male, it's highly unlikely you're going to look through all the ladies on my website and not feel something stirring in your mind that thinks, yes, that lady's really nice, I like her very much. Anyway, if we cover those 3 points, we then get down to I'll go into more depth with the guy. If he's found me on the internet, he will have filled out a biodata form on himself, so I'll have some information on him. I will then want to sort of walk him through the steps, as I'm talking to you now, how it works, the steps of how it works. If he's still on board, and when he's received the literature, he's taken all that on board, and when he's asked all the questions that I feel he should ask, if he hasn't asked all the questions I feel he should ask, I will give him the answers. I will suggest the questions that he should be asking. I say, well, haven't you thought about this? Haven't you thought about that? I've had guys phone me up and say, oh, I want a Thai wife. I'll come along and see you next week and I'll pay you the money and we'll go out. And they said, my customer from hell, because he's a customer who hasn't thought about it. And I said, well, I've had men come to me and just put the money down on the table and say, here we are, I want to go out, can you sort it out for me? And I said, well, have you read the brochure? Have you looked at the website? Have you thought about this? Do you realise what it entails? Do you understand this, that and t'other? And maybe they haven't, and I'll tell them to go away for a week and come back and see me, because they would potentially be my customer from hell. They might come back in a week's time and say, yeah, I understand it now, yes, I can do it, or phone me up and say, no, it's not my cup of tea. I'd much rather have them say it's not my cup of tea before we get off first base. Assuming that we've ticked all those boxes and we're moving forward and we're thinking, yes, this is a suitable candidate to use our service, and I would then ask him, well, okay, you have to travel to Thailand twice, when are your available dates? If he's going to Thailand, I recommend he books fairly well ahead, sometimes several months ahead, to get a favourably priced flight. And also, when instructed, we can book a hotel flexibly for him, whereby he will just pay for what he uses, irrespective of how many nights we booked. We basically book the hotel for the guy when he signs a contract and pays the UK fee. So at the end of the day, if he's got a flight time, we will then point him in the right direction to get cheap flights. When he's got his flight booked, he will then sign up with me, sign the contract, pay me the UK fee. The balance is paid upon arrival in Bangkok. We will then know he's going. We'll have the confidence to book his hotel. We can book his hotel totally flexibly. He will then give us a selection of ladies, perhaps 3 or 4 weeks before departure. Now, some gentlemen look at my website and they look at all the ladies, and one lady sticks out like a beacon, and they just keep coming back to that lady and say, I really, really want to see this lady. She's very interesting to me. I had a gentleman out the other day who came from Dubai, and he was one such gentleman. He went out and he came and used our service. He picked one lady, he met her, and he married her. We can, in inverted commas, lock a lady. If a guy wants to come out for one particular girl, and he can come out very quickly, within no more than, say, 4 or 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks at the outside. If we approach the lady and say, are you willing to wait and see nobody else until this guy arrives? If the lady says yes, and the guy says I can travel, he signs up, pays UK fee, we can lock that lady. If it doesn't go well with that lady, then he can see as many others as he wants afterwards. That's perhaps the exception. If you visit my client's page, you can see a gentleman from Guam saying exactly that's what he did. We do have clients who do that, but it's probably only about 1%. Most of my clients will pre-select ladies about 3 or 4 weeks before going, and we will then be able to give notice to the lady so that they can be there available to meet the guy on his first day when he arrives in Thailand, so we can hit the ground running. Once he's got a flight booked, I've got his flight details, we booked a hotel, we will then await his arrival. He'll be met at the airport by our driver holding up a board with his name on it. He'll be brought back to his pre-booked hotel. We recommend gentlemen stay in modestly priced hotels. I suggest a 3-star hotel, simply because if you stay in a palatial 5-star hotel, the girl's going to think pounds and dollars. This guy's a wealthy man. I had an English lord who used my service, and because he was titled and because he stayed in a very expensive hotel, it was automatically assumed that he was incredibly wealthy, and it wasn't necessarily the case. And we sorted it out, but it gave him more trouble because he raised the expectations of a lady by his behaviour and his persona, and the fact that he was staying in such high-class surroundings. So I always say to clients to stay at a decent 3-star hotel, which has got all the accommodation that you need. It's got air conditioning, satellite TV, bathroom, small swimming pool, everything you need, and reasonably close to our office so that you can flick back and forward from the hotel to the office. The hotel booking is totally flexible. If the lady eventually comes to meet you in reception in the hotel or something, she will not think, oh, this is we're staying in the Erawan Hyatt, he must be a wealthy man. That's not a good impression to give. I always say to stay in a modest hotel. It's only somewhere to rest your hat at night, and you're out all day dating ladies anyway. You'll be out on day dates. You don't need a fancy hotel. What will happen is then he'll be brought back from the airport. If he's arrived very early in the morning, we may have prearranged that he comes to the office and starts meeting ladies immediately that day. More often than not, the guy will be tired, he may be jet lagged or whatever, and he needs to get an early night, and will be picked up at 10 o'clock the next morning, brought into the office, and start meeting ladies at hourly intervals or maybe half-hourly intervals with a bilingual member of staff, one of whom we've seen on the video, a bilingual member of staff in attendance, sitting there and answering all the questions of both parties. We like clients to be organised. Sometimes they're not. We like clients to be organised. It's not unusual for clients to come with a clipboard with a load of questions that they want to ask. It may sound a bit impersonal, but it's not such a silly idea really, because he knows what he wants to ask and he'll get all those questions answered. If a guy likes a lady and he believes that she likes him, and they both are interested in going out, first of all, we'll establish whether she really does want to go out with him. We suggest that we probably ask her privately, out of earshot, whether or not she genuinely wishes to go out with a man or not. If the answer is affirmative, then that will be fine, and they will perhaps go out on the date. And it goes on from there. Guys meet and date and meet and date. But the lady and the man do not go out on a date until all the questions have been answered to the mutual satisfaction. The gentleman will sign a slip to say, I'm going out with this lady, I've met this lady, and it actually says on the form, you will behave like a gentleman and not. It's for the lady's protection and it's for the men's protection as well. At the end of the day, men will then meet and date on consecutive days until usually after a few short days they'll say, look, stop. I like this lady a lot. I don't want to see anybody else. I'll spend more time with this lady. Now, subject to the lady's availability, she may not be able to get time off work, but hopefully she'll be able to get some time off work, if only in the evenings. They will be able to spend more time together, and if he's lucky, they'll be able to go away. Most of our clients usually find a few days when they can get away with the lady, spend more time together, and then what will happen, usually the guy will find himself coming back at the end of the holiday and saying, look, it's gone very well. I'm not rushing down the aisle, it's not marriages at speed, but at the same time, I think we've got a potentially good, firm, potential relationship here, and we're both singing from the same song sheet, we're both wanting to achieve the same thing, we get on very well, the chemistry's there, maybe the language may or may not be strong there, but then what we'll suggest is, if you're moving forward, the gentleman will say to us, well, look, I want this lady taken off your books. And we can only take the lady off the books if the gentleman says, right, I'll get engaged to this lady. So the gentleman will get engaged in inverted commas. He'll buy her a modest engagement ring. It's not written in stone. He can come out a second time, perhaps change his mind, say, maybe it's not going well. But at that instance, he has to have done something to make some potential commitment to that lady. Otherwise, he'll go home and that lady stays on our books and Joe Blogg's coming out next week and meet her. If the guy gets engaged to a lady, he'll go off, buy her a modest engagement ring. I suggest you don't spend much on it at all at this stage, maybe about $600, 300 UK pounds, don't spend a lot. You can always buy a big rock later when she's over here in your country, over there in your country. But at the end of the day, they'll get an engagement ring, they'll come back, we'll sit down with them, go through all the details of what the man has to do when he goes home, his instructions, and the lady's instructions, and then the gentleman will keep in touch with the lady, and he will arrange when he's coming out on a second trip. Now, 99% of my clients come out on a second trip and decide to move forward, having a Buddhist wedding ceremony, or indeed signing marriage registration papers and marrying legally. Of course, there's option C. He could come out and say, well, I'm not actually feeling so good about this anymore, or maybe the lady says, I'm not happy anymore. I can only think of one lady who's ever changed her mind, actually, but anyway, it could happen. It can happen for a man. He can come out and say, I'm not sure. There's no more to pay. He just has to come back into our office and start all over again. Yes, he'd have to make another trip, but at the end of the day, we like you to be pretty sure before you make that big step. But usually we will find that the guy will actually say, look, we're moving forward, the wedding is booked, I'm going to sign the papers, we will take them to the embassy at the end of that trip. If it's a US client, it will have taken perhaps longer between the two trips. It doesn't preclude him from making separate trips in between if he wants to see the lady. But either way, the guy will find himself invariably coming out on the second trip, moving forward, having a Buddhist wedding ceremony, signing the papers, and us marching him off to the embassy where we lodge the application. He will come home alone. His lady will await a phone call from the embassy saying your interview is on such and such a date, as was the lady who did the video clip on this film that you'll see. Pam, she's awaiting at the moment, but she won't be now. She'll have passed by now. She's awaiting her interview in about 4 weeks' time. At the end of the day, we find ourselves then, the gentleman finds himself waiting until the lady has actually done the interview, successfully passed, and then it's just a situation of basically, once the lady has passed the interview, it's basically a situation of arranging a flight for the lady to come to the gentleman's home country. We can assist with that as well. The lady will then, the gentleman sometimes will come out and make another trip and bring the lady back, but there's no necessity to do so. It's nice if he can, but if he's not able to, it's not a problem. At the end of the day, the lady will then arrive in the gentleman's home country. If it's coming to a worldwide country, excluding the States, it'll be almost certainly a wife's visa. There are good reasons for going for a wife's visa, which I can talk about at another time when I speak to you personally. It's not a big deal either if a prenuptial is required. That is discussed as well. That is discussed on the first engagement time anyway. If a prenuptial agreement is required, that can be done, that can be written and translated into Thai on the second trip. Anyway, once the lady passes the visa, she's over to the gentleman's home country. If there's any support or further help needed, my wife is on hand. Talk to your lady, and the lady will almost invariably, irrespective of what country she goes to, she will almost invariably find that there are other ladies who met through our service who are living in her home country, and she can keep in touch with them. And there are large Thai communities in every major city of the world now, and so the lady is not going to be isolated. That's basically how it works. We're with the customer from every single step of the way, from first phone call to final ring on the finger and marriage, and beyond.
To what do you attribute high professionalism?